rub your hands or your face. Then after a couple of minutes, when you feel ready, just slowly open the eyes. Okay, how's everyone doing? Okay. Any questions? Simple? Everyone gets that it's simple? Anything not simple?
No.
Yeah. It doesn't get simpler than just being. It doesn't get simpler than just being. How can you get simpler than that? And that's essentially what we're doing. We're not doing, we're being. You know, doing can be simple, or, you know, as soon as you're doing anything that's relative, it can be more simple, more complex, it can be difficult, it can be easy. This is not difficult, this is not even easy. It's not even easy, because even to say it's easy implies, oh yeah, it's easy for me to, whatever. And say, it's easy for me to lift this bowl. It's hard for me to lift this chair if a guy is sitting in it. But here we're not trying to lift anything or do anything. So it's you know, for shorthand we say it's easy, but it's because it's not difficult, but it's not even easy. It's not anything. It's just being, just hanging out. I mean, we do notice. There is there's a demarcation. There is this period, you know, a chunk of time that we take, and it's really good to take this chunk of time every day, ideally, to sit and just be, or as we call it, meditate. We use this long word to impress our friends and neighbors. Get them to leave us alone for a little while. To get people to, you know, show up on Tuesday night or tune in on YouTube, because we said, okay, Tuesday night we're gonna be being. What? So we have this word meditation, and so there is this kind of decision during this time. We are going to not try to change how things are, but notice how things are already. There is we could say a noticing. There's a recognition. There's a becoming aware of the nature of our own awareness. Right? The nature of our awareness already is the way it is. It's already like space. It's already open. It's already frictionless. It's already, everything comes and goes within it without any effort or involvement from our side. All those things I said in the meditation. That's going on every moment of our life. What's different is that for once we're noticing it, and B, we're giving in to the simplicity of it. We're not trying to make something else happen, which is the opposite of what people usually think of meditation. They think, oh, now it's meditation time, we're going to make something special happen. But actually that's the other 23 and a half hours of the day. That's the other whole rest of our life, always trying to make something special happen. Oh, if I go to this movie, I'll have a special experience. If I go to this dinner, I'll have some special, flavor extravaganza or whatever, which is fine, which is great. you know, God bless. But we're just being clear about the difference. That the nature of this, what this is for one time, we don't try to make things special. We don't try to make things ordinary. We don't try to make things, you know, X or Y. We don't try to make things. We notice that things are the way they are. And so we notice that, and for once we give into it. We just, okay, it's the way it is, and naturally out of habit, we'll find ourselves trying to make it special, trying to change it. Oh, if I can just suppress this thought, things will get really peaceful. If I can just, you know, and everyone does that. Everyone tries to do that, tries to make it special, or more of this, or more of that, or more quiet. And you do that, as much of that as you need to do till you really get good and convinced that it doesn't work. And then you give up. And then whatever ease, whatever settling down you experienced in the meditation was due to that just giving up. Giving into the nature of it, which is that, okay, we're already aware. There's nothing for us to do to be aware. Awareness is already like space. There's nothing for us to do to make it space-like. The stuff that comes and goes within our space-like awareness is already coming and going. We can't make it come or go any slower or faster, and we don't have to. It's all just, what were we saying before? Stuff on the screen. It's all just stuff on the screen, and nothing affects the screen. No matter what colors arise on your computer screen or your phone screen or your movie screen, no colors stain the screen. No colors damage the screen or improve the screen. The nature of the screen is gloriously empty. And that glorious, perfect emptiness of it is what it allows it to display anything and everything. Nothing wrong with the stuff displaying. But what people miss in life, generally, is the emptiness of the screen, the essential emptiness of awareness, the perfect emptiness of it, even when it's filled up with stuff. You know, the nature of space is spacious, it's empty, no matter how many, okay, we put a bowl there, we put a stick there, we put whatever this thing is, you know, we put them all there, there's not less space in the room now. The space is not getting dented as we move the bowl across. And so awareness is just like that. And the more clearly we notice that, which we do through this taking time to sit and meditate, the clearer it starts to become that, oh, that's the situation all the time. And that the freedom we're looking for all the time, when we're, oh my God, there's so much I have to think about, so much I'm doing at work, so much I'm trying to organize at home. You know, our minds can feel so cluttered. So much I have to deal with. Oh, where's that place of freedom? Where's that place of freedom? Where's that open sky? And it turns out, oh, it's right here, all the time, even while all that stuff's going on. Now, at first it can sound impossible that you can have the awareness of all the stuff you have to take care of, and the awareness of the open sky, the blank screen that's behind it all the time. But more and more, you know, as people who practice for a while know, Dorothy, as you know, right, more and more that's the case.
So is it, I look at it more like it's my reaction to the stuff that's going on the screen. Is that correct? Thinking?
But continue that thought. It's your reaction to it, which, what?
Well, my reaction is, like I said, it's just all stuff on the screen, so I become calm because all that stuff, it's just stuff on the screen.
Right.
And you're sort of witnessing it.
Right.
You're not letting it affect you the way it would if you didn't know about the screen and everything else.
So when you say it's just my reaction to it, I think what I'm hearing from you is you're saying your reaction to it is what the problem, what could potentially make a problem.
Right.
Not the presence of the stuff
sort
itself.
Of just because you were saying, I look at it more like you surrender and acceptance also.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just surrender to what's going on the screen, if you want to use that.
Right.
Or just accept it, And my other mantra I was saying at the beginning is, I fix nothing, I let it go.
Right.
And, I've said that to a few people and they're like, what? Like, I said, no, I mean, like, if something's broken, like, you call the plumber.
Yes, yes.
But, I mean, like, and I found myself actually looking at a situation and saying, I'm not gonna fix this, I'm gonna let it go. And it turned out better than I could have dreamt.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, I did nothing.
Yeah, sometimes just getting out of the way of stuff.
Or just accepting it.
Right.
It doesn't have to
Right.
change, it doesn't have to be what you think it should be, or
Right.
whatever, you're not judging it, you're just letting it go.
Yeah, and one thing you pointed out when you try to explain this to people, sometimes
Right.
and there's a reason. There's a very good reason, which is that this can sound like apathy.
Mm-hmm.
It's very easy for this to sound like apathy, passivity, whatever. If the universe wants my homework to get done, my homework will somehow get. That's the hippie, so to speak, misconception of enlightenment. It's not the real thing. So it's not the same as now during meditation, totally passive,
Yeah.
totally apathetic. And again, that's part of the specialness of this time of meditation. Even though what we're doing is we're just sitting there marinating in totally ordinary awareness, which is the only kind there is. There ain't two kinds of awareness. Awareness is awareness. It's just space. So we're marinating in this completely ordinary awareness, but we've made this kind of extraordinary commitment that during this time, whatever happens is what happens. Whatever this happens, I'm not going to try to fix anything. The dog will start barking outside, and I'm not going to try to make the dog stop barking. And of course, you will try to make the dog stop barking, right? You'll try to, and mentally, and then we catch ourselves doing it, and we go, that doesn't work, right? And that's where I think this gets now going back to what you said. The problem is not the stuff that appears on the screen, it's our, we could say, unskillful responses to it.
Because I was just going to say, it takes a skill.
Yeah.
I've learned it since I've been coming here. I've learned a skill. You've given me the tools. So like I said, my life is difficult on a daily basis, and I've gotten so better at being at peace with it. And just being, but it's a skill. And I said, I told you I was raised Catholic, went to church every week, and they never really gave me the tools to, like you have, Dean, to like really, to deal with the things you have to, and be and still have joy in your life.
Right.
And like I say to my friends, I'm going to have a good time if it kills me. That's my line. They all know I say that because I do say, like, you taught me, don't suffer, and to enjoy your life.
Enjoy your life.
And I really do.
Enjoy your life, And for that, I'm so grateful to my own teachers. My teacher Maharishi in particular, enjoy was just the key word.
Yeah,
he would
joy.
Say, life is here to enjoy. The purpose of life is to enjoy, is to be in joy.
I agree.
Right. Now, let's give some credit to the church. Okay, because I'm guessing, I wasn't there in the church with you, but in general, our religions, they give us the ideal. They give us, this is what it looks like, and each one, usually there's usually some beautiful language, some beautiful poetry, some wonderful, beautiful ceremonies that some people can feel very close to, and the stories and the art and all of that, the songs. Everyone's got things that they sing. Everyone's got things that they like with it. Right. And everyone's got some ideals of what a quote unquote spiritual life looks like. And they may talk about it in terms of because here's it may be sometimes by example. Here's the life of Jesus, and he was like this and he was like that. And sometimes there's all these, thou shalt do this and shalt not do this. And so they give you the ideal, but but I think you're right in that in general, we're just making a big generalization here, that religions in general often, over the years, the teaching of the skills tends to go away. It tends to be lost. I mean, I think if you go back and you go to the founders, you go back to Jesus and the Buddha and all that, they were teaching the skills. And I think that tends to get lost over time. So in a way, we're just kind of dusting those off, you know, and then whatever, if that happens to fit into, you know, then you go back to church, let's say one day, and you listen, you go, oh wow, that's what they were saying, you know, oh, that's what that hymn was saying, right? You know, what's the one, the 23rd Psalm, right? The Lord is my shepherd. Oh, what does that mean? Oh, if the Lord is my shepherd, then I'm like the sheep. Now, ordinarily we say, oh, this person's a sheep, and it, you know, it's like a derogatory thing. But at least at the time of meditation, see, once we go, okay, there's this specially ordinary time of meditation where I'm not going to object to anything. I'm just going to go along like a sheep, and just know, okay, wherever the good shepherd leads me is fine. Whatever happens, the dog barks, everything's, I don't have to worry, I'm not in charge here. I don't have to, as you said, I don't have to fix anything, right? I'm in another way we can say it, see, and it's all just metaphor. For this time, for these 20 minutes or whatever, I'm in the passenger seat, not the driver's seat. For these 20 minutes, not my circus, not my monkeys, you know, whatever. However you can put it that kind of, oh yeah, it wakes it up for you, right? Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to,
Green pasture.
yeah, to lie in green, right. I start with just what you were saying. You start to see, oh, the way things, when you give them a chance, they have a tendency to work themselves out. The pastures have a tendency to, you know, turn out green sometimes if we just kind of leave them alone, you know. Lo, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall not fear. Right? Now, isn't that interesting? That it's not the valley of death. It's the valley of the shadow of death. Right? It's not the fact of the thing that we fear. It's the fear, the shadow, the emotional shadow that it casts. Right? And nothing to fear but fear itself, as FDR put it. Right? What is it? He leadeth me beside the still waters. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? You know, we've been riled up, and then what happens when we sit and just let everything be? In its own time, it settles down. It becomes like still waters. When the waters are choppy, you can't get a clear reflection of things. You know, the trees and whatever is out there still reflects, but the reflection's all choppy, so we don't get a clear picture of what's going on. We don't see, you know, the solutions that may be right there to whatever our situation is. We tend to think there's more problematic stuff. There's more, this, because the water's choppy. When, you know, we just let ourselves be led beside the still waters, now we get a clearer reflection. We can see, okay, just take care of this, take care of that. It's simpler than I thought. And then, what else is in there? My cup runneth over. Right? We before that we were, you know, it's like you see people going through life like they're needy. Every experience they approach, it's like they're trying to be filled up by it. You know, maybe this movie will do it, this experience will do it, this relationship will do it. And we still go to movies and have relationships and all that, except more and more we're finding where the true fullness is, which is in the awareness itself. We're not approaching them in a needy way. We're not coming in thirsty all the time. With gratitude, yeah, but we just want to be clear, because so you hear so much of people, with so much like, it's just like Facebook slogans. Oh, I'm gonna have an attitude of gratitude, and that's way better than an attitude of bitching and moaning, which you hear from so many people. But what's even better than that is gratitude that's not just an attitude. Gratitude that's just your natural way of being.
Sure, right.
It's just, you can't, it just arises organically, more and more as the true nature of things reflect in the still waters of your awareness. Like, you just naturally see the richness of what's there, and you just go, wow.
I think that's what's missing. Like I said, people don't realize how lucky they are.
Amen.
I mean, the older I get, I want to say, do you know how lucky you are? How fortunate you are, how blessed you are. And if you don't see that, you're missing so much in life.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, like you said, the kingdom of heaven is within us. I remember when you said that once, and I just, I think about that all the time.
And how many
It's
times
so
did you hear that in church, right?
A million, but I never thought of it like when you said it, Dee.
Yeah.
You should be Pope. I just decided I'm going to nominate you. We'll have like smoke coming out of here.
Oh, Father,
he's
may that
elected.
cup pass from me.
Right.
No,
exactly.
thank you.
No, what you're saying, like I
Yeah.
said, I went to church all the time. I
Yeah.
loved church.
Uh-huh.
I loved going, but no one ever, what do I want to say, interpreted.
Interpreter. You need an interpreter to go.
You
with
need,
that.
right, no.
Yeah.
But in every religion, I feel like
Yeah,
that's the
every-
case.
See, they don't come out
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
say like just normal stuff that when you lead, this
That
is
you
how
can
you
apply.
should, that you can apply. This
Yeah.
is how you should lead your life. It's ridiculous. It's
I used to, you know what? I used to get that, I used to teach English at a private school in New Jersey. And there were a couple of books that for me always became a springboard to talk about, and I would talk about Christianity, and I would talk about the what's in the Gospels and the epistles and the kingdom of heaven, and this, and I would just weave it into the literature that we were reading. And I'd always get, at least one or two kids at the end of the year who would say, I was going to, what is it? This Catholic, CYS or?
CYO.
CYO, Catholic Youth.
Yeah.
Yes, CYO.
Yeah. And I remember, I remember in particular this one kid coming up to me at the end of the year, and he said, I went to CYO for, however many years. I said, and 2 weeks of us, reading, waiting for Godot and talking about the Gospels, I learned more about my religion here in your classroom. And I said, well, what did they teach you at CYO? And he said, oh, don't masturbate and don't get abortions.
Yeah. Also, I think there's so much, and the Catholics have so much guilt.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, go through your whole life feeling guilty about stuff. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You know? It is.
Yeah,
People
it's
waste their whole lives feeling
it's such a lot of work.
It is.
Yeah. And it's so unnecessary. It's not in the original teaching. And by the way, there's a book, and this might be a book you might want to read sometime actually. Anyone who's had particularly, a lot of Christianity in their background, and maybe trying to sort out how that relates to this meditation practice and this growing into awakening that we're doing. And maybe you feel like that's not an issue for you anymore, but there's still maybe some of that not quite sorted out in your background. This superb book by Stephen Mitchell. It's called The Gospel According to Jesus. Okay, and there's a few books, by the way, with similar titles, so you want to make sure you get it by Stephen Mitchell, The Gospel According to Jesus. You can get it on Amazon. And Stephen Mitchell is, first of all, he's been doing this kind of meditative practice for decades and decades, so he's got the experience himself. And then he's also a great scholar of all the world religions and the ancient languages. So he's, he reads the original Hebrew and the Greek and all of this. And what he does is he goes through the Gospels and tries to, and looks at the places where the four Gospels overlap, say the same things, look at the places where they say different things, look at other things we know historically, what was going on at the time, and then mainly guided by his own experience of really experiencing the kingdom of heaven within, trying to kind of extrapolate backwards, go back to what might Jesus have really, what might have really been going on there, what might have actually happened, and what might he really have been teaching. And Mitchell's very humble, and in the introduction of the book, he says the one thing I hear over and over in my mind like a bass drum is, we don't know, we don't know, we don't know. But here's how we could speculate. And I've recommended that book to a lot of people, and a lot of people have told me that they found it really, really helpful. And I didn't grow up with, Christian baggage or any particular religious upbringing, but I just found it so, it made all that make so much sense to me. And really increased my appreciation of the teachings of Jesus. I mean, he's kind of my role model, an enlightened Jewish storyteller.
So I'm gonna put it in my notes, if you wouldn't mind saying the name of the book again.
Was that the book?
Yeah.
The book title? Yeah, right. So it's the Gospel According to Jesus by Stephen Mitchell, and it's Stephen with a PH, Stephen. I actually got to meet him briefly about a year ago, and I thanked him for that book. And he's written a lot of books too. He's got a book. He did a translation and commentary on the book of Job. That's a good one for you, actually. The book of Job, because you're Job. Yeah. Just all the stuff you've had to deal with, and just how do you reconcile that with God's in his heaven and all's right with the world. Yeah.
That's what, like, when people say things happen for a reason, I'm just gonna go, like, a month ago with Kobe Bryant, I mean, that's the other thing, like I said, when people don't, and I watch those crazy shows, and the reason it all falls in the category of people don't realize how lucky they are. If you can just wake up every day and feel somewhat good, and you can go out, you can, just enjoy everything that's around you. That's a good day.
Get out and walk outside. For starters, you can walk.
Walk, exactly.
And then if like none of your body parts are like in acute pain, that's you're doing pretty well.
Right. I said wake up and not have like chronic pain, and that is all signs of getting older, because you realize people around you are falling like flies. But I don't think when you're younger
you'll get it.
But I actually think it makes you.
You do understand, but sort of.
What I think it does, it actually makes your life more fulfilling.
Sure.
My husband says, most people when you're getting old, like if it's your birthday, I hate my birthday and that, and he's like, he looks at it more like he has less time, and he wants to make the most of his time. A lot of people aren't like that. They don't like their birthdays. What's the alternative or whatever, and it's like, it is a gift, and it's a gift until the day you're gone.
Last year I hit a particular birthday milestone, which shall remain unnamed, but it was a significant one to me, because no one in my immediate family so far has lived to be this old. So I'm now older than my dad lived to be, I'm older than my mom lived to be, I'm older than my big brother lived to be, I'm older than my first wife lived to be.
They all passed young.
They all,
Very young.
yeah. So
It's an eye opener, I guess.
So but it's funny. I realized I was kind of a little bit of hold my breath to see if I was going to make it to that birthday, and ever since I've felt, okay, now I'm on the bonus round. Everything from here on in. But of course, it's all the bonus round.
It is.
It's all a gift. It's all a gift. One thing that helps me with my perspective is you know, that I do some work with prisoners.
Mhm.
I've got this one group in New Jersey, I go back several times, they meet every Thursday night, and I just, working with those guys is just like my favorite thing in the world. I've been working with them for 15 years. And also there's a couple of guys in different prisons in other parts of the country that I kind of pen pals with. And one guy, also for about 15 years, who's in this horrible, horrible hellhole penitentiary in somewhere in the southern United States. And what's been keeping him going for all these years, he's just this beautiful, gentle soul. What's been keeping him going is his meditation practice. He does art, and he raises rescue dogs. They've got this whole organization there within the prison where rescue dogs come from outside and they raise them and then they're brought in homes. And he's got these, he makes newsletters for the whole dog rescue, or you know, kind of internal newsletters, and also for a veterans group. He's a Vietnam veteran. The dorm, the wing that he lives in is all Vietnam vets, or just veterans. And so those couple of meager things that he has are, you know, are just like where his happiness comes from. And just about 2 weeks ago or so, that was all taken away from him. So that because some COs discovered some knucklehead used the dog rescue place to hide like a pot of like homemade beer or wine that he was trying to make, and they punished everyone. They just closed down that whole operation. His job was taken away from him, and he's 70 years old, and he's the only job he had was, you know, one where he'd have to get up at 1 in the morning and start working at the kitchen at 2 in the morning, and you know, my last letter from him, I was just looking at this morning. He's saying, you know, I can't do this. I'm crashing. I had to go back to, you know, I'm just, you know, I mean, it's just his whole body is like, I'm just hoping he makes it through this, you know. But in any case, it's perspective. It gives you perspective on these things. You know, and some of this stuff is cliches, but it gets to be cliches for a reason. You know, there's the saying, you know, I cried because I had no shoes, and then I met a man who had no feet. Yeah. But if we just look at it in a very dispassionate kind of clinical way, a lot of it is about fixation. It's just very easy, you know, if your whole body feels comfortable and there's this one part where there's an itch, right? And you can't, for whatever reason, you don't get to scratch it yet, then all your attention will go on the one part that's problematic, the one part that doesn't feel okay. And you forget about the 99.99999% of your body that feels fine, right? And how many people do you know that's what they do with their, I remember this, my Maggie, my first wife, my late first wife, who she was bringing, we were living in New Jersey, and on Sundays she would often, that's when the birthday parties always were, and our daughter was growing up, and she'd drive her up to Short Hills, because the prep school where I taught and our kids went, you know, there were a lot of rich kids, they lived in Short Hills, the rich area, and I remember Maggie coming back after one of these birthday parties and telling me, yeah, she drove up and there was the mom, and Maggie said to her, hi, how are you? And the mom said, oh, today has been my worst nightmare. and Maggie said, oh no, what happened? Like, you know, did someone die? She said, I've been waiting all morning for the man to come and fix the electric garage door opener.
The worst day of my life. There are people just like that.
Yeah,
I think most people are.
Yeah.
They tell me, you know what, I'm like, that would be a holiday for me.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. But, and it's not because they're terrible people, or it's just, it's an easy thing to fall into.
Yeah.
You know, our attention tends to go to the, you know,
Right.
I mean, look at the news, you know, there's never gonna be a news broadcast that says, well, today there was a guy relaxing in a hammock and enjoying a cool drink and everything was fine. Right? That's not news.
But you're right, it's like, because people habituate to that thing that itches, that
Yeah.
part of their life that's not okay. And so it's not even, you know, that the gratitude is obviously a wonderful thing, but it's also just allowing things to be, because everything changes.
Yeah.
Everything's
Yeah.
impermanent, the good stuff and the bad
Yeah.
stuff.
And just in terms of the pure clinical mechanics of our consciousness, meditation is the practice for all of this.
Mhm.
Because during the time of meditation, you sit there, and here's the equivalent. Here's the thing that's wrong. The dog is barking. That's the equivalent of, I've got the itch over here, or the equivalent of, I'm waiting for the man to come and fix the garage door, or, you know, whatever the thing. You know,
Or I
my
need a
team-
new job.
I need a new job, or my team didn't win the pennant, you know, things that seem significant or insignificant. For this time, for these 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, we sit there, and when we start finding ourselves trying to fix it, we give up. We just relax back into the self. We relax back into the sky-like nature of awareness. And we notice that, oh, whether that itch is there or not, whether the barking dog or the whatever is there or not, awareness is still sky-like. Nothing dents the sky. Nothing diminishes it. And we can rest in that. And then the more we do that, the more that carries over. We can go back into our lives, and then even as you're dealing with situations, there's this kind of 360-degree omnidirectional resting evenly in our own awareness. And then more and more, it's just within the context of that just natural 360-degree okayness. That, okay, within that context, I can take care of this. I can take care of that. I can take care of that. And the having things arise that I have to take care of doesn't diminish the 360-degree okayness.
So like then you said before that everything we're doing here is just dress rehearsal
Yeah.
for when things really happen. And I have said that to, you know, in situations so many times, okay, this is the real thing. What if, you know, that was just dress rehearsal when we go to Dean's.
Yeah.
This is the real thing. And I will actually say that out loud, like, dress rehearsal, this is the real deal, you know?
Yeah. Meditation is people think of it, oh, it's like a retreat from life, or it's okay, we get nice and relaxed and then we go back to the same old. No, it is a rehearsal for life. It's the drill for life. This is why when I was traveling in northern India with this wonderful Buddhist teacher, Charles Janu. We're going to be going to New England later this month and seeing Charles. He's coming to America. He lives in Switzerland. And we were going to the important places in the life of the Buddha, where the Buddha was born, and the tree where he sat and became awakened. And a short distance from the tree is the deer park, where he gave his first discourse, where he laid out the Four Noble Truths and all of that. And sitting there in the deer park, Charles gave us a little discourse, a little lecture, and he talked about the nature of meditation and the importance of meditation. And he said, "Why is meditation important?" And I was thinking, meditation's important because you get to swim in bliss. Meditation's important because you get right. And he said, meditation is important because you get to encounter suffering. Right. And it took me quite some time to understand that. Even though he explained it, then it kind of went over my head. But gradually, I've come to understand that meditation's important because you encounter suffering, because what you see is how you create your own suffering. Because you get to experience, okay, I'm sitting here, everything's great. Now the goddamn dog is, and you think that the dog is causing you to suffer. and you try to make it stop, and that doesn't work, and eventually you give up. And then, oh, everything's fine, even though the dog is still barking. And that's when you discover that, oh, that's the Buddha's second noble truth, which is that suffering is self-created. The suffering that is not the function of what's going on the outside. You know, I mean, that it's the function of our unskillful dealing with it, of our trying to make it be other than what's there, our trying to make the red light turn green faster. It doesn't mean we don't deal with things pragmatically, but it means that we're not trying to, right? And again, it's when life throws this stuff in our path that we can't change. We can't make the dog stop barking. You can't make your husband not have his, physical challenges. That's the big opportunity to really learn this stuff. So I was writing back to my friend in prison, just trying to remind him, he's lying there in the bed with all his clothes on, all the blankets on, shivering uncontrollably, and, getting up to vomit and have diarrhea, and just, it's horrible. And that's a challenge for me. What do I write to someone under those circumstances? And I just said, okay, if you're gonna crash now like this, you're gonna crash. I said, but a lot of people are crashing like this who've not known grace the way you've known it. And if in one little corner of your consciousness, you can remember that, you can know that all this is happening but you're surrounded by grace, you're surrounded by love, you're surrounded by, this is all happening in that open space of beingness. It's in one little tiny corner of your consciousness, you can stay open to that. What else to say?
You said the right thing, Dean.
I guess,
I
yeah.
covered it.
I guess, that was all I got.
Wow, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. So, what else? I want to read something. We were talking about this before. Yeah. Well, I can't because I don't have my glasses. Yeah. Oh, over there.
Right here,
Right.
After a certain age, we can all share glasses.
I
like to
no,
have
you
them
can't.
at the
I
99-cent store.
Yeah, no, I can't wear the
My
night.
friends are
No,
like, "Here, keep them."
no. My eyes are special.
You have special eyes. Dean.
My eyes are specially weird. So I just want to read a couple of paragraphs. This is from a book I wrote called Cinema Nirvana, Enlightenment Lessons from the Movies. Buddha clutching a box of popcorn. By the way, I was mentioning Charles, our Buddhist teacher, and when this book was being prepared, and I actually came up with this idea for this concept for the cover, and I went to Charles. I said, "Is that okay? Is that is the Buddha going to strike me with lightning or something?" And he said, "No, that's great." So in this book, they're all movies you would never think of as having anything to do with awakening. There's like Jaws and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and so forth. And the last chapter is Casablanca. Does everyone know Casablanca? Who does not know Casablanca? It's okay. Everyone knows Casablanca? Okay, good. So, yeah. How can you be an American and not know Casablanca? And so I go through the whole story of, let me see. The Bogart character and the Ingrid Bergman character, you have this, incredible love, but they have to give it up for the greater good of, she's got to be with her husband, who's, this great resistance hero fighting the Nazis. So it's in that context of that story I tell this part. So this brings us at last, in this last chapter of this book, to one of the most crucial points I can try to convey. Service is bliss. It took me a long time to learn this, being a man. Women generally get in on the secret early. Certainly I knew it in a theoretical way, and I had even taught and written about karma yoga, the way of action in service to others as a path of realization. But I never really experienced it until my wife became ill with cancer. My attention and energy increasingly had to be focused on caring for Maggie at all times. Work, play, writing, my so-called meditation, everything else had to give way. And that was great. There was so much I no longer had to think about. I found myself melting into each moment of service, letting go of past and future, hope and fear, including the hope that my efforts might do any good. Maggie was a great Dharma practitioner, and through her months of illness, she taught me by the way she abode without hope or fear, refusing to indulge in speculation about the future or longing for the past, instead resting aware of each moment as just another way of being, finding each moment's naked okayness. To serve her, I had to emulate her. Service is bliss. Service is serene freedom from the lifelong ping-pong game of sukha and dukkha, that's happiness and suffering. Service is the acid bath in which desire and self dissolve. And then I have a quote from George Bernard Shaw, and actually we were talking about a Man and Superman. He says, "This is the true joy in life, being a force of nature instead of the feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy." And then I get to what Rick says, that Bogey says to Ingrid when he tells her she's got to get on the plane. He says, "Inside of us," I wish I could do a good Bogey imitation. "Inside of us, we both know you belong with Victor. You're part of his work, the thing that keeps him going." It's that great shot with the two best hats in all of Hollywood history. "If that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life. Ilsa, I'm no good at being noble, but it doesn't take much to see that the problems of three little people don't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world. Someday you'll understand that." And she cries, and he says, now, here's looking at you, kid." This is the way of the Bodhisattva, right? The Bodhisattva is like the Buddha of compassion, person who, and can be any one of us, when you're devoting yourself to the happiness of others. Every time you choose to put Ilsa on the plane, every time you let go of what you wanted, you see more clearly how small is the self's hill of beans, and you release yourself and everyone else further into the freedom of selflessness. My Ilsa was Maggie, and I had little choice. I was like John Kennedy, who, when asked how he became a war hero, replied, "It was involuntary. They sank my boat." So, sometimes they sink your boat, and you rise to the occasion. So, we'll do this again in 2 weeks. Are we going to be here in 2 weeks? We're okay. So, may all beings swiftly realize the true happiness when they let go of the smallness of self and melt into the bigness of the true self, capital S, and find themselves spontaneously free from conflict, so that peace spontaneously comes to prevail everywhere. And the Sanskrit for that wish, Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.